If you're new to Ask Reddit cheating drama, make sure to subscribe and like the video. It only takes a few seconds, but it really motivates us to create more crazy cheating stories. They say the worst kind of betrayal comes not from enemies, but from those you never imagined could hurt you. I used to believe that if you loved someone deeply enough, if you shared a home, a history, a life, they would protect that bond as fiercely as you did. But love, I've learned, doesn't always guarantee loyalty. And sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding the sharpest knives. This isn't a story about a woman scorned. It's about what happens when your reality fractures. When the husband you trusted and the best friend you adored break something inside you that will never return to its original shape. It's about the silence that follows the truth, the choices you make in the wreckage, the strength it takes to rebuild not just your life, but yourself. I still remember the sound of her voice, high-pitched, innocent, laced with joy. "Daddy!" she squealed, running toward him on wobbly toddler legs. That was the moment my world cracked. Not shattered yet, just cracked, the way ice does right before it gives way. Because the man she was calling Daddy wasn't her father. He was my husband. Sorry, I should back up. I'm Claire Morgan. I'm 35, a CFO at a fintech company in San Diego. I've always been the responsible one, the planner, the fixer. I married Noah Morgan when I was 26. He was a personal trainer, all charm and confidence, the kind of man who turns heads without trying. We met at a corporate wellness retreat. Cliché, I know. He offered me a protein bar and a smile. I offered him my number. The rest, as they say, is history. Or was. Our marriage wasn't perfect. No one's is. But we had a rhythm. Morning runs together on Sundays, Thai takeout every Friday, shared Spotify playlists. And then there was Rachel. Rachel Evans had been my best friend since sophomore year at UCLA. We shared dorm rooms, job interviews, heartbreaks. She was the one who helped me pick out my wedding dress, who held my hair back after too many margaritas, who texted me at 3 a.m. just to say, "I miss college and your dumb laugh." After a messy breakup with her fiancé, she moved into a condo 15 minutes from us. She practically became part of our household. Sunday brunches, movie nights, weekend hikes. Rachel and Noah got along so well it made me happy. I was proud to have a husband and a best friend who liked each other. Isn't that the dream? I didn't see it then. Or maybe I refused to. It started with little things. Noah would get home late from sessions that ran over, his t-shirt damp with sweat and something else I couldn't name. His phone, once casually left on the kitchen counter, now never left his side. And when it did, it was always face down. I told myself not to be paranoid. He was a personal trainer. Of course he'd be out late. Of course he had female clients. Of course they texted. But paranoia has a way of whispering when the house gets too quiet. Then there was Rachel. She'd started posting cryptic Instagram stories, a candlelit dinner for two, a man's silhouette behind a glass of wine, a single sneaker on her hardwood floor that definitely didn't belong to her. The posts were always vague enough to be nothing, but together, they felt like something. I remember pausing on one photo, 2 wine glasses on her kitchen counter, with a caption that read, "Good company makes the wine better." I stared at it longer than I'd like to admit. The reflection in the glass showed the corner of a watch identical to the one I gave Noah on our 4th anniversary. I tried to brush it off, tried to believe I was seeing ghosts. But then came the night everything changed. Rachel texted me around 5 p.m., said she needed help assembling Lily's new bed frame from IKEA. Noah wasn't home yet. I figured, why not surprise her? I stopped by a bakery, grabbed her favorite lemon tarts, and drove over. She didn't hear the knock, or maybe she didn't get the chance to. Because when I opened the door with the spare key I still had, the one she insisted I keep for emergencies, I heard laughter. Lily's, of course, and Noah's. Then, "Daddy, come chase me." That word again. Daddy. Not Noah. Not No-No, the nickname she'd called him before. Daddy. My breath caught in my throat, and for a split second, I thought maybe I'd misheard. But when I stepped forward, just enough to see the living room, I froze. There he was. My husband. Sitting cross-legged on Rachel's rug, holding Lily's tiny hand, smiling up at her like she was his entire world. He didn't see me. I backed away like a ghost, closed the door silently behind me, got back in my car and sat in the driver's seat for almost an hour, staring at the steering wheel like it might offer an explanation. My fingers were shaking, my teeth wouldn't stop clenching, and my heart, God, my heart, it wasn't just breaking, it was splintering, because deep down I already knew. I just didn't know how much I knew yet. I didn't say anything that night, not to him, not yet. Noah came home around 10, smelling like soap and mint gum, his post-gym routine, or so he said. He kissed my forehead like always, told me he was exhausted, and headed for the shower. I watched him walk away, towel slung over his shoulder, like a man who hadn't just spent the evening in another woman's home, with her child calling him daddy. Like nothing had happened, like everything was fine. I waited until morning. He was making coffee when I walked into the kitchen. His back was to me, and for a moment, I just looked at him, memorizing. Not the man he was, the man I thought he was. "Noah," I said, voice quiet but steady. "Are you Lily's father?" The spoon clinked against the mug. He didn't turn around. When he finally faced me, I didn't recognize the expression on his face. Not guilt, not fear. Resignation. He didn't deny it. He didn't ask me what I meant. He just closed his eyes, exhaled, and said, "Claire, I'm so sorry." And that was worse than a lie, because it meant the answer was yes. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even cry. Instead, I asked, "How long?" He hesitated. "A little over 2 years." I felt my knees go weak but didn't let myself sit down. If I sat, I might never stand again. "With Rachel?" I asked. I don't even know why I asked. I already knew. He nodded. I felt like the ground had fallen away. Not because I was surprised, but because I had once held that woman's hand during childbirth. I'd fed her when she was too tired to cook. I'd loved Lily like family. And all along, this was happening behind my back, right in front of me. "Was it just once?" I whispered. "No," he said. "It started the night you had the flu. Remember? Rachel came over to help. One thing led to another. I thought it was just a mistake. I told her it couldn't happen again." He looked at me then, eyes glassy, but it did. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My mouth was full of blood from biting down every scream. "Claire," he said softly, "I didn't know Lily was mine. Not for sure. Not until last year. Rachel wasn't sure either. But we did a paternity test." His voice cracked. "It came back positive." And there it was. Not just an affair. A child. A life created in betrayal. Raised in secrecy. While I played the fool, smiling in family photos, I felt cold. Not angry. Not even heartbroken. Just empty. "You were going to tell me when?" I asked. He had no answer, because he never planned to. I didn't remember walking to the bedroom, only that I ended up there, sitting at the edge of the bed with my hands in my lap like a child waiting for punishment. Except I wasn't the one who'd done something wrong. I was just the one who'd been lied to, thoroughly, deliberately, for years. Noah stood in the doorway, not moving, not speaking. Maybe he thought giving me space was the right thing. Maybe he was too much of a coward to come closer. I didn't care. My mind had already shifted from shock to logistics, like a switch flipped. Maybe that's how survival works. When your heart can't handle it, your brain takes over. I began packing that night, not dramatically, no suitcase thrown on the bed moment, just quiet movements, drawer by drawer, a toothbrush, a scarf. The necklace my mother gave me when I turned 25, the pieces of a woman who used to trust too easily. Noah tried to talk. He said my name like it might undo everything. "Claire, please." I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw a stranger. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said. "You let me build a life beside a lie." He stepped forward. I didn't want to lose you. But you already had. My voice was calm. Too calm. I left him in the house we once called ours and drove to my sister's place across town. I didn't cry until I was parked in her driveway, headlights off, fingers clenched around the steering wheel. The sob came from somewhere deep. Not just pain, but humiliation. The realization that the people I loved most had chosen to betray me. Rachel never called. I suppose she knew I knew. I didn't reach out to her either. What could she say? Oops. A week passed before I decided I needed answers. Not from Noah, from her. I messaged Rachel on a Sunday afternoon. We need to talk. Just us. She replied 10 minutes later. Okay, my place? I responded, no, neutral ground, Java and Bloom. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. The next day, I arrived early, sat at a corner table and waited. She walked in wearing oversized sunglasses and guilt like a perfume. She didn't even order coffee. I didn't waste time. How long? I asked. She sat down slowly. It was never supposed to happen, Claire. That's not an answer. Rachel looked away. The night you were sick. Noah was upset. He said you'd been distant, always working late. I laughed bitterly. So you slept with him to comfort him? It wasn't like that. I leaned forward, voice low. Then tell me how it was, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you decided that your best friend's husband was fair game. She flinched. I didn't plan it, Claire. I swear. But you kept it going, I said. You let me hold your daughter, his daughter, while pretending she was someone else's. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. You could have told me, I said. Years ago, before it got this far, before she started calling him Daddy. That was when she broke. I loved him too, she whispered. I stared at her, stunned. I didn't mean to, but I did, she went on. And when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know who she was. I hoped it was Alex's, but when the test came back, her voice cracked. I wanted to keep him, and I knew I couldn't do that if I told you. So you made me the fool, I said. Your cover, your audience. Her silence was admission. I stood up slowly, gathering my things. You don't have to worry about me telling anyone. Your secret is safe. Because honestly, Rachel, I met her eyes. You're not worth the energy anymore. And then I left her there, sitting in the ruins she'd made, pretending the pieces could still be swept up. Grief doesn't always look like crying on the bathroom floor. Sometimes it looks like walking through Target alone on a Sunday afternoon, not needing to ask anyone if they want almond milk or oat. It looks like deleting shared calendars, canceling couples' therapy appointments you never actually went to. It looks like silence, not heavy, not hostile, just finally yours. The first few weeks after I left felt hollow. My body moved, but my soul was elsewhere. Somewhere curled up, licking its wounds in the dark. But slowly, breath by breath, I came back to myself. I started running again. Not with Noah, alone. Just me, the morning air, and music loud enough to drown out memories. I returned to work, head down, laser-focused. My boss, bless her, didn't ask questions, just handed me a new project and said, I trust you. I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear those words until that moment. I trust you. One evening, about 2 months post-divorce, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years. Logan Pierce. We'd dated briefly in college, the kind of short-lived romance that was equal parts comfort and chaos. He was charming, curious, always scribbling song lyrics in the margins of his notebooks. I used to tease him that he'd end up writing jingles for toothpaste ads. He didn't. He ended up running a small but wildly popular independent recording studio in downtown San Diego. We bumped into each other at a bookstore, of all places, both reaching for the same copy of Atomic Habits. Claire? His voice was like warm coffee. I looked up, startled. Logan? He laughed, stepping back so I could take the book. You always were more productive than me. We grabbed coffee that afternoon, and then dinner the next week. And then, well, it wasn't a fairy tale. Not yet. Maybe never. But it was easy, honest, safe, and God, how I had missed safe. I told him everything one night. The affair, the baby, Rachel. I expected judgment, maybe pity. Instead, he just listened. Then he said, "You didn't deserve that, any of it." And I believed him. Not long after, I sold the house, not out of spite, but because it was filled with echoes I no longer wanted to live with. I moved into a small townhouse near the coast. It wasn't big, but it had a balcony where I could drink wine at sunset and a tiny office where I could journal at 2 a.m. when sleep refused to come. Rachel tried reaching out once, a short, emotionless email. "Lily misses you." I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. As for Noah, he moved out of the city, last I heard. Took a job in Scottsdale. I heard through mutual friends that he's trying to be a good father. I hope that's true. Lily deserves at least one parent who doesn't lie. Me? I'm still learning what it means to trust again, not just other people, but myself. To trust that I'll see the signs next time, to trust that I'm not broken, just wiser, to trust that pain doesn't mean the end. Sometimes it's just the start of a better story. It happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon in March. I was waiting in line at a small bakery downtown, the kind of place with fogged windows, too many succulents, and an espresso machine that wheezed like an old man. I was distracted, thumbing through emails on my phone, when I felt a tiny tap on my leg. "Hi," a small voice said. I looked down. She was wearing a yellow raincoat, curls damp around her face, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. Lily, older now, maybe 4.5, but unmistakable. Those same wide eyes, that same dimple when she smiled. My heart stopped, or maybe it folded inward. Behind her, Rachel stood frozen, a paper bag clutched tightly to her chest. She looked thinner, tired. The years hadn't been kind. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. But Lily reached out again, gently touching my coat. "I remember you." My throat tightened. "You do?" She nodded. "You used to bring brownies, and you knew my bunny's name." I smiled, even as tears burned the corners of my eyes. "Mr. Pickles." Her face lit up. "Yes." Rachel finally stepped forward. "Lily," she said softly. "Come here, sweetie." But Lily didn't move. "Can I hug you?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. I knelt, arms out, and she wrapped her little frame around me like a memory I didn't know I needed. Her warmth, her scent, a blend of soap and cinnamon, hit me like a wave. I held her longer than I should have. When we finally parted, she smiled again and ran back to Rachel, who stood quietly, watching. Our eyes met. She didn't speak. She just nodded, the smallest, strangest gesture of understanding. Or regret. Maybe both. I didn't nod back. I just turned, took my coffee, and walked out into the rain. But something in me felt lighter. Not healed, not whole, just at peace. Because sometimes closure doesn't come in grand gestures or final conversations. Sometimes it's just a little girl in a yellow raincoat, reminding you that even the deepest wounds can leave behind something soft, something worth remembering. It rained the whole drive home. The city felt quieter than usual, like it was holding its breath. I replayed the moment over and over. Lily's arms around me, the weight of her tiny body, the way she looked up at me like nothing had changed. Like betrayal hadn't touched either of us, but it had. Back at the townhouse, I toweled my hair dry, changed into one of Logan's hoodies, and curled up on the couch. He came home an hour later, carrying Thai food and instinct. "You okay?" he asked gently, setting the takeout on the coffee table. I nodded, not quite ready to lie, not quite ready to talk either. "I saw Lily." His expression softened. He didn't need the details. He knew what that name meant in my mouth. "She remembered me," I said. "Called me by name. Hugged me like I never left." Logan sat beside me, close but not crowding. Of course she remembers you. You were a part of her. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But instead, there was just a quiet ache. Not sharp, not loud, just the constant throb of something that used to matter. Do you think I should have said more? I asked. To Rachel, I mean. I think you said exactly what you needed to. I don't hate her, I admitted. Not really. Isn't that awful? No, he said. It's human. And maybe that's what bothered me, that after everything, the betrayal, the lies, the silence, I didn't feel rage. I felt something messier, sadder, like standing in the ashes of something that once kept me warm. The days after that passed in soft, careful motion. I went to work. I met deadlines. Logan made me laugh. We argued over the best kind of pasta sauce and whose turn it was to take out the recycling. Life, in its small, ordinary beauty, moved forward. But something had shifted. One evening, I found myself sorting through a box I hadn't opened since I moved. Old photos, greeting cards, mismatched mugs wrapped in paper. Near the bottom was a picture from Lily's 2nd birthday. She was giggling, frosting on her cheeks. I was holding her in my arms. Rachel stood beside us, laughing. Noah was just out of frame, but I remembered. He was the one holding the camera. I stared at that photo for a long time. Logan came in quietly, sat behind me on the floor, wrapped his arms around my waist. I keep thinking I should feel done with it all, I said. But I'm not. You don't have to be. I feel guilty sometimes for walking away from her, from Lily, like I left a piece of myself behind. You didn't walk away from her, he said softly. You walked away from what hurt you. I leaned back against him, let myself exhale into his chest. Still, that night, I wrote a letter to Lily. I didn't plan to. I just needed to. I told her how much I loved her, how sorry I was for disappearing, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that kids shouldn't have to understand, that if she ever wondered, I didn't leave because of her. I left because I had to protect what was left of me. I signed it but didn't seal it, just folded it neatly, placed it in a box labeled for later, and slid it into the back of my closet. Some truths aren't ready to be told. Some aren't even meant to be. But writing it down felt like reclaiming something, not just the past, but myself. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I almost didn't answer. It was a number I didn't recognize, and I was elbow-deep in quarterly reports. But something in my chest, a quiet pull, a shift in breath, made me swipe right. Hello? There was a pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in nearly a year. Claire, it's Rachel. I stood slowly, moving toward my office door and closing it. What do you want? My voice was sharper than I intended. It's Lily, she said, and just like that, the air left the room. I didn't speak. Couldn't. She's in the hospital, St. Jude's. There was a high fever that wouldn't break. Then she started having trouble breathing. They think it's pneumonia. Maybe worse. I sank into the chair behind me, my fingers numb. I'm with her now. She's asking for you. That stopped me cold. She remembers you, Rachel continued, voice breaking. She asked if you were coming, and I thought you'd want to know. The old ache came back. Old ache came, not as a stab, but as a slow, suffocating pressure. I'm not family, I said, the words bitter in my mouth. They won't let me in. Rachel hesitated. They will if I add you to the list. Claire, I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important. I didn't respond right away. My mind spun in circles. Memories, boundaries, pain I'd buried like bones beneath my new life. But none of that mattered. Not really. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and sadness. When I got to the pediatric wing, Rachel was waiting by the double doors, arms wrapped around herself like a lifeline. Her hair was pulled back, her face pale, No makeup, just rawness. We didn't hug. We didn't speak. She simply nodded and led me down the hall. Lily's room was quiet, dimly lit. Monitors beeped softly. She looked so small in the bed, an oxygen tube resting just beneath her nose, her stuffed bunny tucked beside her. When she saw me, her eyes lit up in that way children never learn to fake. "Hi," she whispered. My throat closed. "Hi, sweet girl," I managed, moving to her side. "You gave everyone quite a scare." She reached out with a tiny hand. I took it, sat down, and stayed there. Time passed strangely after that. Rachel left us alone. Doctors came and went. Nurses adjusted machines and smiled gently. At one point, Lily fell asleep with her hand still in mine. I just watched her, listened to the rhythm of her breathing, tried not to fall apart. When Rachel returned, she didn't speak for a long time. "She talks about you more than you'd think," she said softly, eyes on her daughter. "She still has that storybook you gave her, the one with the flying elephant." I nodded. "She loved that one." "She still does," Rachel's voice cracked. "She calls you her other mommy." Something broke in me. "I never wanted to take that from her," Rachel whispered. "Or from you. I didn't know how to fix what I ruined." I turned to her, met her eyes for the first time in over a year. "You can't fix it," I said quietly. "Some things just stay broken. But this," I gestured to Lily, "this matters more." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thank you for coming." I didn't say you're welcome. I wasn't there for her. I was there for the little girl who once called me family, and maybe, somehow, still did. Lily was discharged 2 days later. The worst had passed. The doctors were hopeful. She was still tired, fragile, but smiling again. That same wide-eyed, mischievous smile I remembered from birthdays and bedtime stories and brownies baked at midnight. I stayed the entire time. Not because anyone asked me to, because I didn't know how to leave. Rachel didn't push. She gave us space, awkward at first, then quieter, more natural. Sometimes she'd sit with us, reading Lily a book or brushing her hair. Other times, she'd quietly disappear into the hallway, letting me stay. The last morning, as I helped Lily button up her coat, she looked up at me and asked, "Are you coming home with us?" My hands froze. Rachel stood behind her, silent, eyes full of something complicated, part hope, part guilt, part fear. Maybe all of it. "I can't, sweetheart," I said gently. "Why not?" Lily's brows furrowed. "Because I don't live there anymore," I said. "But that doesn't mean I don't love you. I always have. I always will." She looked confused, as children do when adults try to explain the way life breaks things we swore would last forever. But then she nodded. Just once. "Okay," she whispered. "But can I still see you?" I felt my heart stretch in my chest, a soft, painful expansion. I glanced at Rachel. "She can," she said before I even had to ask. "If you want that, if you're ready." I nodded. "I'd like that." Rachel smiled. It was small, tired, but real. "I'm not asking for us to be friends again," she said later, while Lily played in the hallway. "But maybe we can be something else, something good for her." I looked at her for a long moment. "I think that's fair," I said. A few weeks later, I took Lily to the zoo, just the two of us. She held my hand the entire time, narrating everything in a loud, joyful voice. The sleepy lions, the smelly penguins, the cotton candy that stuck to her chin. We rode the carousel twice. I bought her a balloon shaped like a turtle. She gave it a name, Claire Jr. And when I dropped her off, Rachel didn't ask questions, just smiled and said, "Thank you." Logan was waiting when I got home. He kissed my forehead, poured me a glass of wine, and said, "How are you doing?" "I don't really know," I admitted, "but I think I'm okay." He nodded. "That's enough." And it was. This isn't a story about revenge. It never was. It's a story about truth and what happens after it knocks everything down. It's about choosing softness when bitterness would be easier. About learning that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it's just choosing peace over poison. Noah and I haven't spoken. I don't think we will. Rachel and I will never be what we were, but we're learning how to coexist, to co-parent from a distance, even if the title doesn't fit. And Lily? She's okay. She's more than okay. She's the bridge between what was and what comes next, the reminder that love, in its purest form, is never wasted, even when it ends. I used to think survival meant cutting things out, walking away, burning what hurt you. But sometimes, survival means staying, just long enough to let the light back in. So no, I didn't get the life I planned, but I got something better, a second chance, not with them, with me. Some endings don't come with closure. They come with questions you'll never get answered, apologies you'll never receive, and memories that ache in places you thought had healed. But healing isn't linear. It's not neat or poetic. Sometimes it looks like crying over a photograph. Sometimes it looks like smiling through your own strength. I still think about her. The version of me before everything fell apart. The Claire who believed in forever, in people, in promises. I mourn her sometimes, but I wouldn't go back to being her, because this version of me, the one forged in fire and grace, knows her worth. She doesn't beg to be chosen. She chooses herself. So if you've ever been broken in ways no one else can see, let this be your reminder. You are allowed to start again. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to heal without permission. And above all, you are allowed to be okay, even if it took losing everything to get there.